Gambling Control Regulation of 2026 for licensing. So I have a few asks before I start. I hope all of you have downloaded the regulations by hands. Okay. Are there those who've downloaded the Act as well, Gambling Control Act? It's on the QR code. Okay, so I've seen your hands. Should I point you to look at a certain section? Please, we were told yesterday we were very dull, so I hope today it will be an interactive session. Okay, so communication to the next slide. Okay, so we are going to look at the division of the regulations, and this is not a presentation per se, it is an overview of the regulations on licensing. So the regulations have part 1, 2, 3, which are preliminary provisions, that one, which essentially has the, how do you call them, the meanings attached there, and then Part 2 has licensing, which talks about the requirements, processes of licensing, what is required. Part 3 is the general provisions, which you also look at. First, second, and third schedule are there. Those were the regulations. We have all the schedules. Okay? Okay, next. So the first, I picked a few highlights on the interpretation. So we have the authority under Section 6 of the Act, that authorizes the authority to and establishes it. Then the hybrid license, which for our licensed operators and those prospective, covers those 4 licenses. So casino, bookmaker, public lottery, and bingo. I know you used to see public gaming, but it's casino in the Act. And then we have non-online gambling, which means gambling operations operated in a licensed premise, including gambling machines, but excludes physical tables. Okay? Then we look at price competition. It's very wordy, if you can read it through. But what I want you to remember in it, have a product, have a service that you are promoting, and a price. It could be skill-based, it could not be skill-based. That is, in short, what it means. And then we have the random number generator, which means a certified physical or electronic machine that tests laboratory approved by the. So this is curing those who want multiple licenses under one platform online. Okay? 18. Non-online gambling. We had this question yesterday, so some of them we want to cure today with the questions that we had yesterday. So, non-online gambling, where do we find it in the Act? We find it under the 3rd schedule. Those who have the Act, where the gambling security is, you'll see non-online gambling operations. And also in terms of definition of what a gambling machine is, has also been stated in the Act. And if you look at Section 44, it tells you of the Act what that gambling machine needs to look like. So I hope this will demystify a lot of the queries we were getting yesterday in terms of non-online gambling. Next slide, please. The requirements for licensing. Where are these requirements? They are also in the Act, specified in the Act, and these are not all the requirements. It is based on what kind of application you're going to make. So we'll have the forms which are in Schedule 2, Schedule 1 or 2, correct me. Payment has to be made according to the 2nd schedule, and then body corporate with minimum of 30% shares held by Kenyan citizen under Section 29 of the Act. And the Act I learned or were educated does not have the word company. So it talks of body corporate. And then I had to look at what body corporate is, and it means an LLP, a PLC, trusts, associations. And then you have to have a valid tax compliance, what we call TCC, and then valid police clearance certificate, mode of operation, depending on what you're applying for. If it is bookmakers, then the odds, the events, all that, you need to list them. If it is the casinos, the machines, specifications on the same, they are also listed in the regulations. Then 7, proposed terms and conditions as indicated in the regulations. They are there. Internal dispute resolution mechanisms, mentioned a lot in the Act. Proof of gambling capital set out in the 3rd schedule of the regulations. So I think some people were confusing gambling capital and gambling security. So the gambling security is in the Act. Declarations under the 2nd schedule of the Act. I had something. Okay, and then the certificate of incorporation of a company. So those are the basics. We're not saying this is all, but we've highlighted. So now we go to the processes of application, what we will do during the process, and why we would reject. So after I'm done with this, somebody will tell me what you see in common in terms of the numbering, so that I know you've actually looked at the regulations, right? So processing. On receipt of an application, it will be processed within how many days? 14, okay? Then it will be reviewed, and then the applicant will be notified, and then request the applicant for additional information where necessary. This is within 40 days. That is section 21. We go to inspection. What mandates us to inspect this? Section 23. The authority shall carry out an on-site inspection of the applicant's premise. And then, why is this inspection necessary? For safety and security systems that are in place, and also in regards to the requirements you listed in the regulations. Then we come again to rejection of application. The authority may refuse to issue a license to an applicant. Why? If they do not comply with any of the requirements set out in the Act and the regulations. So who has seen something there? Don't wait. So I know you've looked at the regulations. Is it these guys who have the regulations open? Someone? It's public participation, so I expected a comment there. Anybody who has the regulations open? Look at the numbering. Those are some of the things you need to tell us. So if you go to the regulations, you'll find, I think it is 22, then it's repeated, and then there's some order that is not okay. So those are some of the things we want you to assist us with. What do they say? To err is to human. Yes. And that is why those two sections that are 23 and 23. Okay? So there is an error there. I think we'll correct it on our end, and we've noted it. Next. Okay, so suspension or revocation of a license is found under section 24 of the Act. There are actually 12. We've listed 9. So maybe you can find out what the 3 are. So one is commencement of operation within 6 months from the date of license issue. I think that question came up yesterday. So what ideally this means, I know that there are currently licensed operators. However, we envision new operators as well. So if you've not commenced within 6 months of the date of the license, there's suspension or revocation on that license. Number 2, ceased or suspended operations for a period exceeding 3 months without approval of the board. So it means you also need to communicate should you want to stop operations. Failure to keep any records required, which is under the regulations as well. Obtaining license by providing wrong, false, or misleading information. 5, failure to comply with any conditions imposed on the license. The license has conditions, I'll show you later. Insolvency or unable to effectively conduct its operations, unable or has consistently failed to protect the confidentiality of data, that is with the data protection laws. And then 8, failure to pay annual license fee in accordance with the regulations. You shouldn't do that. Number 9, failure to meet the audit requirements under the Act and in the regulations. So there are 3 more. That's homework for you. Then we come to part 3, general provisions, highlights. So any license, any fees payable under the regulations shall not be refundable where a license is cancelled or revoked or ceases to carry out operations or business. And the fees shall not be payable on a pro rata basis if the license fee is paid in the course of the year for the commencement of the license. And then 27 says a license shall trademark. I think we've been asking you to make sure that your business, the trademarks that you submit to the board are actually have certification from KIPI. So now it's in the Act that the name of the license, trademark the name of the license and submit a certificate of registration from the relevant government agencies of the authority to the authority within 90 days of being licensed by the authority. Okay. So we'll go to the first schedule. So those who have the regulations, if you count through the forms, you'll find that there are 16. But there should actually be 17 if we name them properly because of the inclusion of the fit and proper form. So what is the fit and proper form? I know you've all encountered a form called probity form. Okay? So this is a probity form. And just to, before I proceed with that probity form, what are requirements from what guides us even to make the forms? Section 29, Section 30 give us the mandate to ask for those requirements as well as prepare a fit and proper form. So it is not our imagination or creation, we are guided by law. So what is in the fit and proper form? If you look at it in the requirements, the fit and proper form will have sections A, B, C, D, E, F, G, until H. Yes, so it will include your personal information, your name, and those are the details, and then the company information will be listed there, and then you'll have the professional background and qualifications. The criminal and regulatory questions will be there as well, all data for you to fill in, financial integrity and standing, shareholding information will be there as well, business interests and BO information, that is beneficial owner information, and then we'll have required supporting documents. So I've abbreviated them, but probably for the sake of those who may not know the abbreviations, ID is the identity card, PPT is passport, CV is the curriculum vitae, and PCC is the police clearance certificate, and then we have bank statements, academic and professional certifications. So all these will be informed, should be 17 when we rename them. Okay, so I think that's my last slide. This is how the license is envisioned to look at. Those are the details you should have in the license with the conditions attached. So that is how we envision the licenses to look at, which are also in your regulations. You're taking pictures and they're in your regulations. Amazing. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for listening. I invite because in the licensing regulations, we also have the fees. So our team, Mr. Karan, will give an overview of the fees for both all the licenses and also for the notary licenses.
Good morning, everybody. All protocol observed. I'm CPA David Karani. I represent the fees according to the licenses which have been introduced to you. So it's nothing new. We can all partake that the last review is like 20 years ago, and the market and even ecosystem of gambling have changed. What I can say is gambling being the good or service, the fees also caters that aspect that gambling services and goods are not demand driving. So, continue the slide. As you can see, we have casino, and we have land-based and non-oil. And I'm clear guiding that you know what is non-oil means as pertains land-based. There is those who talk of Kanyonde and the rest, they will come and non-online. So those who are thinking about slot machines, you can have non-online those slot machines outside the gambling or public gambling premises, as you can see the fees. Also the fees, caters also used to be investigation fees, where a foreigner director used to pay like 1 million according to the category or the sections of the licenses. So these fees caters for those. You also see something like investigation fees, or what we used to call diligence. Continue. Also, bookmaker, there are several categories. All the calls, of the calls, both. And there is also non-online and also betting shops. There's another category that is in law also, hybrid, where you can now combine licenses. You can apply one where you have casino, bookmaker, public lottery, and bingo. All our licenses, as per the category, you can see bookmaker, lottery, and casino. And I can talk about the issue about the premise transfer. The issue of premise transfer, the law states the issue of on-site inspections. So the government will change the location. Maybe the head office, even where you have online, you should have a physical premise somewhere, where you can inspect, where you can have those all the books of the account when needed, so that when you are transferring, you have to notify the board. That is where you can see premise transfer. That's a public lottery. Also, we have long term, non-term, and even the short term, as the law says about each category. Short term is less than 1 year. Also, the categories of public lottery, we have incidental lottery, private lottery, we have what we call national lottery. which is now, you can see fees differently from what used to be on public lottery. The center is more the same like bookmaker, but you can see also there's both of the course, on the course, and both combined. So we have bingo. This is still the category of the license. We have also land-based bingo or online bingo. Price competition, as you can see. What used to be, we have now extended the period because the price competition was 3 months. We used to seek extension, but now we have given away the duration and the fees against those durations for those 90 days, 180 days, or the extension where we have given that the days and the additional cost, as you can see. Also, on the same category, we have commercial and non-commercial. Tom betting, I think it's not very common, but we still have it here, so that those who intend to have it, they can also apply. There's category of other fees. As you can see, the law among those 18 licenses, where the services are needed, you can apply so that you can get them. I'll talk now on the key employees. Key employees licensing, it is the law, section 28(2), I think, where you are supposed, the GRA is supposed to license key employees. There's critical issues where you should license them. One being to prevent fraud and money laundering. The issue of money laundering, government is taking very seriously, and there is need to control those who are employed. During government is we have more cars who can see the transaction or millions. So we need to have those people who are working being regulated and being given annual licenses. You can see advertisement. Also, we have fee where we intend to advertise. Okay. As you can see about the government capital requirement, what I can say there is difference between capital requirement and the security. Before we used to have open casino, you bring back as guarantee, let's say 500,000, equivalent to the license. But in the law, now they are told there's capital requirement. Capital requirement, what we are saying is, do you have capacity? Do you have financial capacity to operate that license that you want to apply? As you can see, they are given according to the category of the license. Government security, I've said it is already in the Act. What we used to call guarantee, we used to ask for bankers guarantee. Now, this is to safeguard the customers, because some cases you can have jackpot rating to even 100 million. So it is the drivers or the government want now the customer to be safe, to be secured that he can have that money you are promising. to having this kind of security. You can see the categories of duration of the license. There are those within 1 year, 3 years. Like National Lottery, we have 7 years. I think, thank you, that's all. We invite your comment and your concern as we discuss fees within the regulation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that elaborate presentation. Honorable Chair, Director General, Gambling Regulatory Authority, we've gathered here to collect views. You are just giving an overview of the regulations before us. I invite anyone who has any issue regarding the licensing regulations and any other regulations, you can also capture your views. The plenary is open. Anyone who has views, we came here to collect views. However, we are requesting you to do more written submissions. I've highlighted modes of collecting, how we receive the views, either digital, online, or physical. However, today, being the last day, we want to hear from you. Welcome. Honorable Chair, yesterday we had a very interesting session, and much of the contribution, many of the views were submitted by AGOC, and we really captured as many views as possible. Today, we are also gathered here, being the last day. We welcome you to give us your views.
My name is Kennedy from Metatech. My question is on gambling capital requirement. Can we use a bank guarantee? Thank you.
Thank you, Kennedy. You've captured your question. Yes, next.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew from SwiftBet, and I've got views on the proposed fees, and they're extremely unreasonable, while at the same time I'll commend the board for the capital requirement because it's reasonable for all people who are coming to be able to show that they're able to meet the capital requirements. And also on the terms of securities, they are very high and reasonable. And there's a notion that maybe betting companies make so much money and hence the fee. At the same time, new entrants coming. So you find when you put the fee so high and this other thing so high, you know what we create? We create a loophole for uncontrolled gambling. I think the board should try to consider to review the fees and the guarantees requirements while we keep the capital requirement as it is.
Thank you, Andrew, for that observation and also that concern. Well noted. There's a hand that has just been raised.
Good morning. My name is Henry. This shareholding, because I saw something about shareholders license fee, annual fee.
Ladies and gentlemen, once more, As you give your views, you tell us your name and maybe the organization you're working for, so that we may capture that in detail. Thank you.
License been revoked, there will be no refunds. How about if the body or the gambling authority itself has made a mistake in making an issue on that side? Will they refund back the money to the gambling company? Number two, there is a question concerning investigation fees, where we heard that for those people who want to be investigated, they have to pay fees to actually facilitate investigation. And this one I've never even heard it, even up to the age I am in. When a DCI investigates you, it cannot tell you to pay fees so that you will be investigated. It is the gambling authority itself has got money from the licenses, has got money from the government. It has capacity to investigate anybody, wherever he is in this world. So it cannot ask fees from the person who is being investigated. I think you have to correct that. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for that comment. We'll be taking a few views before we ask maybe the board or some to respond. Most of the views will be capturing them, but a few of them will react like what Mr. Smith has just raised.
Good morning. My name is Laura Gacho from the Lex Advisory. At the moment, I just have one question in particular. I just want to understand what was the reasoning, or rather the statutory underpinning of the inclusion of an annual operating license fee. I'd like to hear from you with regards to that. Thank you.
Laura, your views have been captured. We'll react to it in a short while. There's a hand which has just been raised here.
Hello, good morning. My name is Godfrey from Kibabet. I want to take this opportunity to thank the board for organizing this event for people to give on their opinions. Having said that, my questions, or rather my question, is on licensing. So there is this rumor, or rather a suggestion out there that big operators are stifling small or entrant operators by influencing what the board does in terms of raising, for example, an application fee. So in that case, I'm just requesting a clarification on that, and also there is a capital requirement which has been stated, and when I look at the fees, I see more of the board going for fees rather than focusing more on compliance. For example, enforcing something on KYC, reporting, audit, security, user data protection. Such things have not been talked about. I just see a lot of stressing on fees. It's like, for example, if the board could enforce like a tired or a phased out capital requirement based on transaction volume or user base, something like that, not just enforcing a full capital requirement for like the everyone for all entrants. I think that would be good. Another thing which I wanted to talk about is what is the basis for this minimum requirement? What are the basis for this fees? How did you guys reach on them? Because it seems like it's everything goes in this case. Because if, for example, you are a small operator or a new entrant and you don't meet those, but you meet, for example, a stricter KYC, you have a clear reporting, you can be audited properly, and your users, their data are strictly protected, and also you're not exposed, as in cybersecurity line. What will prevent you if you don't meet those fees? Because I see a lot of stress on fees and nothing on these issues, which are actually really, really important in terms of compliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Godfrey, for that, raising that.
Yes, my name is Isaiah Opio. Sorry, I'm going to ask on the gambling conduct. Sorry, I wasn't there yesterday. I'm here on this other side, Mr. Chair. You're back. Yeah, you can see me here. Sorry, I wasn't there yesterday. I was under the weather, but I'm here today. And I'm going to ask a question on gambling conduct. The last submission that was done by Retirement Benefits Authority actually indicated that the pension funds is actually in a tune of 2.81 trillion. Today, if you look at the gambling, or let me say most of the adverts, you tune into a local radio station, you'll find a retiree or our aged parents actually coming to confess how they actually played and won. And looking at this, there is a trend that now retirees, given that now they are not actively employed and they're looking for sources of income, a number of them are getting addicted to this. Bwana Chair, I did a proposal I did my submission in regard to how do we protect our parents and retirees in that matter from gambling? Because if we don't do that, this 2.81 million trillion, which was actually, the growth was necessitated with the deductions through the NSSF and all that, will actually end up there. I mean, payouts, because of us here, we can confess, we've actually helped our parents, and the next time you call, you're like, oh, nilijaribu kubet, and it actually didn't actually work out. So the question is, how do we safeguard the benefits? Or in a way, I'm not saying we discriminate, but we protect or safeguard our aged or retirees from engaging in betting. The young people can actually still have more time because pension funds or benefits are not discretionary income. Number two, I did a bit of analysis some times back. There's a time when adverts for betting was actually stopped for a while. And I saw, and digital lenders actually confessed, that the time there was a ban, I think it must have been for a month, the consumption of digital loans actually went down. What am I saying here is, there's what we call betting loan loop, which means today if betting was to be stopped for a while, maybe 1 month, digital companies will go down. They'll go down because, and there was even a study that showed that 80% of loans under 1,000 are in default. Why? Because there's already some correlation between that betting and digital loans. Maybe people are actually taking small digital loans to bet. Now, I know there's an interest here. How do we balance the two? So that one, we don't end up hitting on this other side to treat this other side. And then lastly, about the CSR that is being done by betting companies. Is it possible that every maybe betting company would establish a foundation so that all the CSR, because I know there's that mandate for them to channel all that to charity, most of them would have foundations where they would actually channel those funds in a way are more tangible. So you come in and evaluate the foundation this time round. Where are you going to focus? Are you going to focus on education or something else? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for your views. However, you can also do a written submission. In as much as we have captured, we kindly request you to do also a written submission of the same. On CSR, you've just answered yourself. That's the direction of the foundation. Any other views? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Motegi. With an operator and also with AGOC. We had a presentation that we're going to be sharing later on, but we wanted to just highlight one key issue very early in these discussions. And the issue has been mentioned twice by people in the room. It's a question about cost. When you look at the Act and you look at the regulations, you will notice that the costs are very high. We have done a comparison with other regulated industries like banking, like insurance, and I can tell you that the costs under this regime are unprecedented. I'll just give you a couple of them to show you exactly how, by implementing the cost structure that is in the regulations and the Act, essentially many betting companies or gambling companies will be put out of business, and this will hurt the product variety that customers can then access, which obviously is detrimental. You see there is something called capital. Capital essentially means the cash that one needs to have in place to run a betting business. For online, that's 50 million. For casino land-based, that's 100 million. For a hybrid license, that's 50 million. Separate from capital, we have gambling security, which is in the Act. For casino, that's 20 million. For online, it's 100 million. For non-online, it's 20 million. You will remember also that for advertising, we've been asked that for every advertisement that we are placing, 10% of the advertising budget needs to be paid as a cost for every advertisement, right? This is in addition to the excise duty of 15% that you're aware we already pay to KRA on advertising budgets, right? The license renewal fees, and this is a point that I'm making around the entire regulations as opposed to simply the license regulation fees. There is a distinction in the regulations between making an application and licensing, which is very unusual. If you look at how legislation is done with other regulations in this country, application should simply be an administrative cost, something like 20,000 shillings, 5,000 shillings, etc. So for instance, I'll give you an example. When you're filing a tax case at the Tax Appeals Tribunal, you only pay 20,000 shillings. Because the cost is not supposed to be so high that it prohibits access to justice. The same argument can now be used here, where you put both an application fee and a licensing fee, right? When you do that, essentially it becomes unconstitutional, particularly where the cost seems so high that it looks like it is prohibitive. I'll give you a very good example. The regulations say that if you lose your original license, for you to get a duplicate license, you must pay 1 million shillings, right? All other laws in this country, I don't think there's any law that tells you if you lose your license, for you to get a duplicate, you pay 1 million shillings. And this is just an example of just how high these fees are. You'll appreciate that what we're trying to do in terms of creating a new betting environment or governance structure is to protect the player, but to also encourage commerce. So it's a balancing act between the needs of the player, but also the needs of the sector. Now, when I talk about these costs being so punitive and the danger that a collapse of the industry could cause, it's a very real danger, because you can imagine the betting tax that we pay, 15% of GGR, that is what is, for instance, being used to fund something like Talanta Stadium, right? So it has a direct correlation to how the betting companies support sports. So if, let's say, half of the betting companies are not in existence after 1st of July this year, we're not going to be collecting 15% of GGR from those entities that have been closed, right? So that kind of reality, we need to see these regulations in that broader sense, because the effects or the impact of these regulations will have carrying over effects in terms of CSR, in terms of sports, in terms of employment, in terms of taxation, further than just July. I think for now those are my comments.
Thank you for your comments. Any other reaction? Any other views? Any other person? Introduce yourself and tell us the organization you're working for.
Hello everybody, my name is Eric Bonga. I'm from a company called BetBao. I'm also, which is also a member of AGOG. So the question that I wanted to ask is in of agreement. So my understanding here is that the games provider must be licensed by the authority. I hope that understanding is correct. And so if the games provider is supposed to be licensed by the authority, the question is, like for instance, in our case, we have so many games in the system. So we are just asking, all these games providers, how are they supposed to be licensed by the authority? And the other question is, what comes first? Is it the provider to be licensed first, then the operator is licensed thereafter, or okay, what happens here? So I have those two questions in regard to this section. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, for that question. Any other person with different views? Any other person with comment? Oh, thank you.
Good morning, my name is Judith Kirago. I represent Golden Key Limited, but I'm also an AGOG board member. There's this issue of minimum capital requirements. Clause 6, number 1, it says a licensee shall demonstrate availability of prescribed minimum capital to operate a gambling business during licensing. Is it possible that for ongoing concerns, for ongoing operators, that the the authority allows them to commit to meet the responsible gambling, email and stuff like that. For example, when the fees that have been articulated are quite high for us. The multiplier is quite high, and yes, you're saying that the industry is. I don't know how. What informed the GRA to come up with such high fees. For example, I'll just give an example because I know you're going to get a more detailed. I'm looking at the land-based operators, the casinos, application fee of 5 million shillings, application fee. We would like to propose that this figure, just like the way one of our members has said, comes down to about 20,000, 25,000. And that is an application, it's a form that we are getting so that we can make it convenient for us. Because even the application fee is higher than the license. No, it's not higher than the license. The application fee is higher than the license fee. Because the application fee is 5 million. The license fee is 4 million. How on earth can application, getting a document to fill out, how can it be higher than the license? I mean, I think there has to be some form of order and something that is informing this process. So, we would like that fee to come down. We are also proposing that the license fee be reduced, even that 4 million. Let it be reduced to 3 million. 3 million. Renewal for the license. Again, application fee, you've put it at 2.5 million. We would like that to come down to something less than 50,000. And then there's the license renewal fee, you've put it at 9 million. With land-based, it has been changed, it has been corrected. So again, because it is a renewal, we are proposing that renewal, and I'm just giving an example of one segment of the game gambling. This should be applicable to all the others. The betting, the lotteries, not national lottery. National lottery, I think you should charge them quite high. But it's all the other operators. So like, put it down. You put it down. Can you see? We are using land-based as an example right now. Please, who's got the remote? The license renewal fee has come down to 5 million. License fee, you've put it up at 8 million. We are actually asking for these figures to come down drastically. And we are going to give those proposals. So, again, for the key employees, we are requesting, I've moved on to the key employees. We are requesting that you waive this because these employees, these license fees that we are paying are quite high, and they cover the employees, the key employees, as well as the directors. We are requesting that you waive them. The directors and shareholders are injecting funds into the business. So how are we then again asking them to pay license fees of 300,000 and 100,000? And of course, also the application fees are quite high. So please, kindly consider to waive that. I would also like to give an example or a proposal for the capital requirement. Casinos has been put at 100 million, and right now the security has been put at 20 million. That should mirror the capital requirement, the minimum capital requirement. We are proposing that since the security is 20 million, then the minimum capital requirement should be 20 million as well. There's just one more point, which I also took note of. The offense and penalty, that is page 23. Offense and penalty clause 28. A person who operates without a license required under these regulations commits an offense and shall be liable upon conviction to a fine not exceeding 1 million shillings, or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months, or to both. I would like to propose that we amend this clause to read a fine of 10 million if somebody is operating if somebody is contravening these regulations. They cannot be penalized. This regulation implies that it is cheaper to operate an unregulated operation than to be regulated. That is what it shows. So what I'm proposing is that raise the penalty fee to 10 million, even imprisonment, raise it to 10 years, so that it becomes more, so that we can encourage people to be compliant with the regulations. So, thank you. And I'm sure we're going to be having a more exhaustive document from AGO, but I was just giving an example using the figures that you have proposed to us. We need to cut across all those figures. Kindly let us have a reduction in those figures, and so that it makes more sense for us to operate in this environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Judy, for that oral submission. We've convened this session to hear your views. We would like to hear more of your views, and we'll give you feedback. Any other person with a reaction or comment? Yes, Samuel, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Humphrey, an operator, also member of AGOC. And I also would want to speak my mind from my professional background. When you are making policy changes should always be incremental. You need to slightly increase and give room for future revisions, because these are not the last regulations we'll do. We'll keep revising regulations. So a case in point is budget. When we are making budget for the country, every year we increase our budget, but we cannot increase it tenfold. We have to marginally increase it so that we're able to accommodate growth in economy. When we are proposing fee structures, changes, we need to give room for revision that will be done 5 years to come, so that we do not find ourselves eating the rooftop. And we have to look at prevailing economic situation of the country. Now, when these fees were put in, maybe the economy was more than we have today. So I would agree we have to make some changes. Now, based on that, we have to look at other factors. What is the government policy currently? We have a lot of labor force, and employed labor force that we want to absorb into the economy. So we need not to put barriers that will deter private investors to assist the government to absorb unemployed, skilled professionals, graduates out there into labor market. Now, one of earlier, I think Paul Mutegi talked about comparison in the industry. I just checked what Safaricom pays when they are applying for their annual license to Communication Authority. I think there's somebody from CA here. They just pay 2,500. Yet all of us, we use Safaricom as our private gateway. So the size of Safaricom, for example, and the application fees they pay, fees what is proposed. I will not talk further about that. There is the issue about key employees, which is in the Act, and I agree. We need to do also in the industry to protect the industry. But I've seen the license is annual. So key employees are professionals. Operators will source for professionals from whichever background to come and assist run businesses. So once you are vetted and you get your returns, which there is proposal to even date quarterly, you will get your returns annually. And this GLA provides information from relevant agencies. I would imagine you do not know the tax compliance of this employee, the criminal record of this employee, so you will get information from relevant government agencies. So the need to continuously pay for our license, and this GLA is not moving from one company to another, then that issue that every year this employee has to pay, which will become a cost to the company. It is not moving out of from this company to another. Still that this GLA, you see, we also go for greener pastures, so it can be pushed by a different company. What happens? So you was listed and a company A, licensed, after 2-3 months, you moves out. Does that license expire? This GLA, I want to as or her as a professional. So lastly, because these are regulations we are making, if you look at other sectors, for example, professionals, those who lawyers, accountants, they are licensed by their professional associations, and they are allowed to practice so long as they know that license given by the person who actually trains them yearly and is able to monitor. So I would ask what would be the position of associations like ABOC on that, to ensure these key employees are not just licensed, but can really push that function to a different entity, maybe ABOC. Thank you.
Thank you, Humphrey, for that submission. Ladies and gentlemen, this is very exciting. We want to hear from you. We want to collect more views. Oh, Madam.
Just to I remember listening to the overview by one of the GRA officers about when he was elaborating about non-online operators, and he mentioned that there will be the Kanyondes. I would like to request GRA not to take us back to those years of 2019 when those machines were creating havoc for all of us. Those machines caused us a lot of problems. Kindly, if we are going to open slot parlors or those non-online shops, make sure that those machines are the same, similar machines to the ones we bring into the established operations, which are well configured and they have been tested in the international labs. Kindly do not take us back to those years of machines that created a lot of problems for us here in Kenya. Thank you.
Someone has raised a question here. Thank you, Madam, for that observation. Carry on, sir.
Thank you, Amoy. My name is John Mutua from AGOC, and I've got one issue as relates to licensing of software providers. And I think somebody else had addressed that before. I just wanted to lend my voice to that as well. Some of these software providers are not resident in this country. They do not even have offices in this country. Now, at the period where your license has expired, you're going in for the fresh one, you are only allowed to put on board on your platform providers who've been licensed. In the event that none of these people actually take the bother to apply for those licenses as anticipated by the regulations and the Act, how then do the operators proceed at that point? Because it's a danger that I see that we may have to address. It's just fair that we look at it and I think get guidance from the authority going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mutua, for that. You can proceed.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. I will only focus on one provision, basically on the anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism compliance under the licensing regulations. And this I'm making from a money laundering reporting officer perspective. The current requirement from operators is to provide evidence of AML compliance, including policies, procedures, and training. I think that is Regulation 4, okay, or something. So I believe that my proposal actually is the AML compliance, anti-money laundering compliance, should require mandatory integration with an authority-approved centralized compliance infrastructure. Why am I saying that? Because as it is now, we have a fragmented kind of way within which we operate. More often than not, we get maybe sanctions that need to be screened from GRA. Most, if not all of us, do not do the screenings. Yeah? So it's actually hard for money laundering reporting officers to report the actual data as required by the regulations. So I believe when you do have a centralized compliance infrastructure in terms of suspicious transactions reporting, responsible gambling, it becomes easier, and then we have uniform communication from all operators. Thank you.
Kindly, sir, you did not tell us your name and which organization you're coming from for record purposes.
Sorry, bear with me. My name is Alfred Utieno. I'm from ILOT Bet. Yeah. Okay.
Any other person with different views?
Yeah, good morning, and the established protocols. My name is Robert Warehwa. I'm from Casino Watamu. I've got 2 remarks to make. One, yes, these regulations, they are welcome to create some order in the industry or the sector. But my main concern here is when dealing with this, we should know, we should understand that most of us in this house, we are not new entrants into the business. We're already in the operations, and therefore, we should be looking at these regulations as a transition, bringing in mind the going concern principles. So it should not just be a switch on, a switch off, switch on. It will be very difficult for all of us to continue. Second, talking in regard to land-based operations, it should be understood that, number one, most of our operations, first of all, we're in the tourism sector. And being in tourism sector, we attract foreigners into our premises during operations. It's reading through the regulations. There's a caption telling us that our operation we should only accept local currencies, which doesn't in real sense make sense, because assuming our operations are at night, assuming the tourist walks into our operations, okay, you don't expect that tourist to have local currency. He will definitely walk to our premises with foreign currency. So that has to be reloaded and addressed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Walekwa, for that submission. Any other reaction? Oh, there are two hands. Ladies here. Yes, thank you, Madam Judy.
Thank you so much. I have a different comment to what the gentleman across me said. He stated that we should have a central system that will flag maybe the clients who are self-excluding. I would like to say that might create a monopoly, which might not work best, especially as we are a democratic and capitalistic country. Some of our operators already have systems that they're able to manage their clients. So some of these companies have invested heavily in doing the due diligence the customer due diligence. So suggesting that there be one system linked to all of us or that, so that we can be able to flag clients who maybe have self-excluded, or as you said, AML, they've been flagged by the Financial Reporting Center. Some of us already have those systems in place. And so for us to have a central system might not be conducive, because some operators have already sunk their funds in setting up these systems, and so that will be a duplication and also a loss for the operators. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Judy. Well captured. There's a lady here who has raised her hand. Kindly introduce yourself and tell us which organization you're working for record purposes.
Hello, I'll introduce myself once more. My name is Laura Gasho from Belex Advisory. Mine are just observations coming from the point of view of operators that are not in the market at the moment, and they're entering into the market. So the first one would be with regards to Regulation 4, where the proposal is, as part of your requirements, you're required to have evidence of compliance with AML and including registration. From a practical point of view, this is a bit difficult to enforce, because as you are registering, as you're registering with FRC, you're required to provide your license from now GRA. So you'll find that it will be difficult to comply with that. So my proposal for that is it should be handled the same way as you've done with the trademark certificate, that there's a time period in which, after licensing, you're given to present evidence of that. The second point, going back to trademarks, I say that is a welcome point to include it, but coming from now the point of view of a new entrant that hasn't been in the market, you've given 90 days. Sometimes, or rather most of the times from practice, 90 days is not sufficient due to backlog at keeping. So my proposal to that would be to have either mechanism where someone can seek extension of time where the 90 days is not there. Then number two, it's not clear, because you say that registration of the name, but in practice you have, I think it should specify specifically trade name, because you have in practice sometimes the name that the organization is called under the company's registry is not what it's operating as. So those are my two key observations. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Laura, for those wonderful submissions. Back to the gentleman again.
Thank you. Just allow me to respond to my sister up there. So my argument, I was actually basing it from the last training we had in Naivasha, and I believe one colleague there, allow me to mention, Paul from one of the operators, was the only, I think Betika, if FRC are here, I don't know if they're here, Betika was actually the only betting company that was compliant in terms of having a system where they can refer to. They know, they do their sanction screening, they do their PEP screening, and I believe CEO Agok, you are part of that forum in Sawela. Paul, who was the MLRO at Betika, was the only one who was able to showcase what they're actually doing. So my argument here is for the need to have a national compliance infrastructure. It's not about monopolizing the market. It's about the regulator having real-time visibility. Secondly, it's about uniformity in how we do our submissions. Most, if not all of you who are there, know that I am the prefect of MLROs, and we really had very big challenges with MLROs. I can see they know me here. Most, if not all of them, didn't know even their JD. So what this thing actually does, the need for the national compliance infrastructure will help with the staff training that the regulator requires from us, that we share staff training. Most of us MLROs who are here actually don't even know what that role entails. So my 1 cent was, why don't we have a national compliance infrastructure where now all operators can now uniformly make their submissions? If Madam Esther requires us to do sanction screening, then it's uniform across board. It's not that only 2 operators are the ones who made the submissions. Yeah, so that was my 1 cent.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take one more submission with the permission of Chair, Honorable Chair, Gambling Regulatory Authority. We'll have a break for tea, and then we'll come and resume for more submissions. We have 2 hands which have been raised. I believe these are burning issues. I'll give you a chance to raise your issues, and then we'll have a break.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Peter Kisili from the Nairobi City County Department of Gaming, Betting and Lotteries. So we have attended this event so that we can listen and maybe give a few of our feelings. And we'll also be able to share our submissions, the written submissions to the provided channels. So we would like to appreciate the Gambling Regulatory Authority for coming up with these regulations. And just to mention that according to Regulation 4, as we ask for the applicants to have the requirements there, we also wish that they also have, it has also been made a requirement that they have the requirements from the counties. Here I'm talking about the counties because it's not only the county government of Nairobi which hosts the gaming business. So it's a submission that as we come up with the requirements, that the requirements from the county government, there's the business permits, because basically gaming activities are premise-based. This will enable us to avoid instances where maybe the GRA has given a license, but the business cannot operate where it is because of the requirements from the county government. So it's good that we have a clear coordination framework between the GRA and county governments. Among these are other submissions that we will do through a written memorandum from the Nairobi City County through our county secretary. Thank you.
you, Mr. Kisilu, for that submission. There is a hand which was raised behind, and then we'll break for 30 minutes. We'll resume at 12:30. You can proceed.
Thank you. I think I just wanted to lend my voice to the conversation that has been raised from our MLRO prefect. I need you to understand that while that is a key concern, it is not a conversation for us to direct to the authority, because I'll give you guidance on this. As the association, right now, we're in some very advanced conversations with some of the providers in that space, so then they are able to guide our members in terms of their compliance. My invitation to you, join the conversation. Let's walk that journey together, and let's not, like Judy did point out, I think let's leave the authority, the regulator, out of that. It is a compliance issue that can be sorted within us as operators separately.
Sasha, I hope that will be the last submission before we break.
Thank you, thank you. My name is Sasha Kanata from Mozartbet, as well as AGOC member. So I would like to ask about licensees. So I saw the list that we have 18 licensees. We have been discussing with our members of association, and all the time they asked us what is a non-online bookmakers license, what is non-online gambling license. It's not clarified there. What is the difference between pool betting scheme and totalizator? And also, does hybrid license, when it's 4 categories indicated in the regulations, if someone wants to have 2, can he apply for that hybrid license, or he needs to have operations in all 4 forms? So that it's a request from the association that be indicated in the regulations and specified all those forms of gambling currently in the market. Also, we received the questions if we want to have, for example, crash games only in a betting shop, what kind of the license we need, because whether it's crash game online product or bookmaker product, because it has odds, or it's a casino, or it's instant games, somehow to be clarified in these regulations. Thank you very much.
Well, we'll break for tea. It will take 30 minutes, and we'll convene back at 12:30. Thank you.
look at you or look at camera?
You look at the camera.
All right. Come on. You'll get the footage after. Okay. You ready? Good. My name is Peter Karimi, the Director General of the Gambling Regulatory Authority. We have organized a public participation forum at the KICC from the 31st of March, the 1st of April 2026 to discuss regulations that are going to govern the conduct of the gambling industry going forward. This is a very necessary step. It's constitutional in nature. It is provided for in the law. The public must give their views before any regulations make it to the end. We are going to incorporate all views that are collected over the 2 days, and also all the views that are collected on our website and on the email addresses provided, so that every view makes it for consideration and for inclusion where necessary and where possible into the final regulations. We have invited all operators, members of the public, members of the county government, state agencies that are also concerned in the industry, and anyone else who feels that their views needs to be heard to this forum. We will have public participation window closing on the 13th of April, and then all views will be collated into the final document that will then make it to go to Parliament for ratification.
Maybe you can talk on something about the feeling about the reaction of how do they consume the proposal?
Okay. So we have regulations published that respond to the Act calling for new guidelines on licensing, on responsible gambling, on advertising, the National Lottery. And all these have elicited various levels of reaction. Some are very, very positive. Some point out to areas of challenges. We are embracing all views, especially from the operators who are most affected. But it has to be accepted and appreciated that the industry was under-regulated for many years. The act that was looking after this was done in the 60s and was grossly inadequate in looking after all the challenges that the industry goes through. We could not continue in that way any further. His Excellency the President has been very, very clear that the player must be protected. So player responsibility, responsible gambling, looking after the security and safety of players, especially those who are doing it online, looking after those who may have become problem gamblers, and our exposed youth and children. These are the primary concerns as a regulator. Everything else comes thereafter, which is about a fair playing environment and operating environment for operators, and then tax collection for government, where there's a predictable mechanism for tax collection. Therefore, when we have been listening to Kenyans give their feedback from all walks of life, these are the tenets that frame how we are going to look at that feedback and what makes it finally to the end document. And that's why we are encouraging all participants to give their feedback, give their views, give their opinions on these regulations, and we shall continue to add them to enrich what is there in the regulations. We also thank the Executive Office of the President that have facilitated these regulations to come to life, and our parent ministry, because this is the only way that this kind of participatory engagement brings us the correct document to look after this sector.
Okay, maybe for someone who wants to understand how the authority operates, maybe you can touch on maybe like how the expectation actually, how the authority will work on it, the proposal now, it will be impact on the
okay.
maybe business.
The Gambling Regulatory Authority is created by an Act of Parliament, the Gambling Control Act, that was enacted in 2025. Okay, it's okay, I'll start. The Gambling Regulatory Authority was created by an Act of Parliament. It passed in 2025, and it repealed the Betting Control and Licensing Board Act. And it was a CAP 161 that had brought about the Betting Control Licensing Board. And with that repeal brought about a new era of regulation for the industry. It created this authority, the board that runs it, the position of Director General, and it created the environment within which these regulations that are being discussed here are going to be framed. We are extremely keen on making sure that every provision in the Act is brought to life. As it is a procedural impossibility, we may not bring everything into life at once. It will be sequential, and because of most interest is how the licensing regime will look like. You can see that this is the biggest area of concern from operators and members of the public. We shall address all those concerns. We shall also take them through the primary guiding light, which is the responsible gaming element. That is the one thing all participants must be focused on, protect Kenyans. Because of that new dispensation that we do have, the powers of the authority are greatly expanded. Because it now exists as a state corporation with an inspectorate, we shall be able to have very many mechanisms to regulate the industry, both online and land-based operations.
Okay, the last one is partners, the one which we are partnering to work on this proposal. Maybe you can mention them.
Yes. Okay. So the Gambling Regulatory Authority cannot work in isolation. We are heavily reliant on our partner agencies for the success of our regulatory efforts. The Kenya Revenue Authority, the Communication Authority, the Financial Reporting Center, the National Intelligence Service, the Central Bank of Kenya. All these are authorities and bodies that look after every auxiliary element that is concerned in the gambling ecosystem. It is important that we work very, very cohesively together, because it is the only way we have a full view, a 360 view, a 3D view of how the industry is operating, so that we can be very, very conversant with daily happenings in the industry. Also, that kind of scrutiny allows for self-regulation. We do not have to intervene in every matter. The industry itself will be able to naturally correct simply because of the number of eyes that are looking at it. So we are very, very excited about the cooperation we're having, including with the county governments, because they are well captured in the Act, and their role is very clearly well captured in the Act. And we look forward to what can be achieved when all this interagency cooperation comes together to work very fluidly and very solidly, especially in this internet age where we do not have human intervention, that all this can be done simply by relying on technology. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well,
thank you so much.
Karibu.
Baadaye.
final session for the day. Let's get in, let's be seated. We want to resume our session. A kind of request. Those people who will be presenting, please make a brief presentation because we have quite a number to cover, and then we listen to your submissions. Let's have a very brief overview. Those people outside, we are waiting. You can make physical hard copies and submit to our offices in Upper Hill. So we are waiting for the Director General, GRA. Up next will be Agok for a brief presentation before we embark on our submissions. Kindly prepare. The Association of Gaming Operators, are you ready to do your presentation?
We can start another presentation.
line up in our presentations. We have an overview, a presentation from Association of Gaming Operators. And then we have 2 more regulations which were not presented to us. That's tribunal and foreign-based operators, regulations 2026. Prepare after AGOC, you'll be presenting after. We will be receiving your written submissions, either online or physical, up to 13th of April. In 2 weeks' time, you still have chance to submit your submissions so that we'll include them in the final regulations. Make note of that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second session. As I had mentioned earlier on, we had invited some agencies who are helping us in compliance issues. So on stage next will be Association of Gaming Operators to give a brief overview of the operations and submissions. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Amoy. On behalf of the Association of Gaming Operators, we've got 2 sets of presentations lined up. The first one was a request specifically made to us to talk about responsible gambling and the Chukua Control campaign that we have run and continue to run. And I'd like to invite Mungai to take that space, and then immediately after that, Mutegi will then we'll actually invite Sasha to just make some very quick remark, and Sasha will then invite Mutegi to give our detailed highlights for now, as we now finalize on making our written submissions to GRA as regards the regulations. Thank you. So Mungai, over to you.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. DG, Chair in absentia, all protocols observed. We're just going to take you through a short, brief history of what led us to embark on this journey, which was a long and well-planned journey. The first insight we got, as well from members of the public and as well from the different quarters of the government, was that there was a genuine concern about the public consumption of different levels of gambling, be it betting, virtuals, and what have you. That insight brought us information that there is a concern that people need to learn how to self-regulate. But even in the absence of self-regulation, we know that the government has endured much, and as well GRA has endured much to be able to help in regulation. To that end, it brought us to one particular insight, is that we need to come together, band together as the different partners in this industry to work together and to come up with a concept that is basically one where we are telling our punters, we are telling our citizens, we are telling the people who love engaging with our platforms to be able to self-regulate. And that is where we came in as AGOC. We banded together, and the first thing that I can say was very key was a success in all of us coming together, even being competitors. We were able to sit down and come up with a concept and understand the concept, plan it, and bring it to the public. Thus was born Chukua Control, control, kwa kimombo, is take control of your gaming lifestyle, take control of your bed sleep, take control of your habitual. Let it not be an addiction. We kept on reminding our punters, both on our platforms and as well in public, that this thing is for enjoyment. It is for fun. It is not an investment. It is not a source of salary, and it should thus not become a lifestyle. It should remain an element of enjoyment. And from that, we were able to come with an implementation. Implementation meant that we were going to do BTL and ATL. ATL being above the line, radio, TV, and digital, and BTL being road shows and going to the ground to meet different people, be able to counsel them and tell them to stop that, stop over indulging in betting. More to that, we were also able to push the toll-free number where people will be able to call and get help where there is need. That was our implementation plan. We were able to roll out and to go into different stations, different platforms. That led to something called an implication. The implication was that we needed to band together and make sure each person, each platform represented here, did a contribution to a kitty. And that kitty is what was used to pay the implied costs that came with the communication. To that end, we were able to embark on an entire NCP that touched on all radios, as many as we could, both national and regional, television stations, both national and regional, newspapers, and digital platforms, and as well, most importantly, we indulged the different influencers that have been under the contract of different platforms here. And they were all to preach only one single message: chukua control. Right now on the screen is one of the ads that were playing, and the temporal example that is happening here is a boda guy is giving a lift to someone, a ride to someone, and they almost fall out of the road because the guy is trying to look at his betting slip. That's the chukua control element. On the flip side of it, we came, I don't know if the radio ad will be able to play. Can you play the video? With the audio, yes. Then I'll quickly get into the runaround of the PowerPoint. Our strength points are not technical, our strength points are betting. Kwa hivyo mtatuia radhi kidogo. Huyo ndo mtaalamu amefika. So maybe as we are getting ready to get that going, as we had mentioned earlier, we were very intentional on the different radio stations that we wanted to use, different TV stations we wanted to use. And the reason for this intentionality is that from the different data we consume as platform owners and platform providers, we know the particular areas that have the highest numbers of bets, highest numbers of placements, ama ukitaka highest number of interactions. So we ensured that there was a pie chart element of putting these different commercials into play, where we know there is the highest stimulation of interacting with the platforms. We agreed generally and together that those are the areas that would receive the bigger part of the pie as we continued slimming down.
Chukua control na yo okairi chukua control na ara tuja to gakwira atiri no bateria kwithira ogicetha ya micedo ijo kuigwa akethire mucedo ndia jwa kamari ukecethaga na ume ndeke no toka yucetha ume menya akiri chukua control ya rero kuigwa ya chukua control yo withira okironga maira uri bateria kwithira ukigita kuri ewengwa na akiri chukua control ya tore.
So part of the implementation of this process was that all radio stations and influencers and presenters needed to say Chukua Control and explain what it is about. On screen right now, I don't know if you have audio on this one.
Ni beta hawezi ngoja.
Nimejaribu kuacha manze lakini kila time tu nimeekelea. Hiki tunani affect.
Wako na shida, chukua control, know your limits.
Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na Association of Gaming Operators Kenya kwa ushirikiano na Gambling Regulatory Authority. Mchezo huu unaweza kuleta uraibu. Chukua control, cheza kistaarabu. Ni kwa walio zaidi ya miaka 18.
Wewe wachana na simu bana, si utaniangusha.
Hizo sis, nina siku leo mapema na ikila beta haraka leo lazima niomoke.
Uko na mchezo na ikila beta tukipeleka nduthi, kwani beta hawezi ngoja.
Nimejaribu kuacha manze lakini kila time napata tu nimeekelea. Hiki tunani affect.
Wako na shida, chukua control, know your limits.
Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na Association of Gaming Operators Kenya kwa ushirikiano na Gambling Regulatory Authority. Mchezo huu unaweza kuleta uraibu. Chukua control, cheza kistaarabu. Ni kwa walio zaidi ya miaka 18.
Shukran. From that point, you'll realize all our adverts were structured in a very particular manner, where we had the introduction, then we had the body, which is not the creative element, and then the outro, which was mandatory, that it had to point out Chukua Control. By then, we're using BCLB and the particular details of saying it has to be above 18 and what have you. If you could go to the slide. So this is an overall campaign report. I'll go through this quite fast so that if there is by any chance any question, we'll have time to get. Let's proceed to the next one. So basically a roundup. I think I'm growing old, I can't see that far. On course and on time, the campaign was launched 8th December and went all the way to 4th January. We, as mentioned, used quite a number of channels. It was multi-channeled and multi-layered, from TV to radio to newspaper. The different dynamic activations that took place were from spot ads, activations, tags, and interviews, which was very key, and you'll see at a later point, because we needed an authority, right from our CEO to different members of this platform, going to different stations and giving their point of view. An overall summary of the 4-week campaign to the promotion was done, which is exactly this, what we're going through. And a major highlight of week 2 was a live interview that was done on Radio Jambo, which you'll also see on a later slide. And I believe that can be shared to members here via link, which will be availed to the group and also to GRA as well. Kindly, the next slide. So these are the different stations that we used. I'll not dwell into each detail, but as we mentioned, we structured so that we have the biggest national reach as possible. Week 1 were on Citizen TV, Innova FM, CAS, and Citizen Radio, which meant we started on an upside-down pyramid where we were going very wide at the beginning and then funneling down to our stations once we were sure the message has reached as many persons as possible. Week 2 went to the national TV station, KBC, then Chamge FM, Classic, and Radio Jambo. Week 3, which was now at the point of sustenance, we did K24, Kameme FM, Muga FM, Radio 47. And week 4, which was now at the residual point of the campaign, meant we are just drumming in the smaller tags and the shorter ads, 15 seconds, 10 seconds tabs, and very minimal mentions. Thus we did the smaller number of stations. Next one. This is the interview where our CEO went. He was able to go to Capital FM Live and addressed quite a number of issues about gambling, addictions, and the ability of you taking your own control. Again, this was shared in the different handles, and the links can be shared as well to members here and to the board and to the authority. And on the week 2 is where we were able to do an interview at Radio Jambo, which was very well represented. I'd say for the sake of time, we'll not play the interview for now, but we'll definitely share it with members and as well the authority. Willis Ojuang well represented us that day. He's also a member of this platform and as well a provider of the different platforms we have in Kenya. These are the different activation samples, I think we've played already, so we don't need to come back and play again. These are highlights. Allow me, DG, 2 seconds here, guide. This, we did not just work alone. We also worked heavily with the board, which guided us as this is what to say, what not to say. We did not want to seem like we were flying autopilot. We ensured that the board guided us, then was the board, now the authority guided us, and even the next steps that will be coming. Any brief we'll be preparing will first of all run through this able authority to guide us and give us approvals, then before we go on air. All activations ensuring that every presenter was equipped and well briefed. And also all presenters, key to note, had been briefed not to mention any platform in particular, because this was not an advertising platform. It was a platform that is CSR driven to protect our citizens. Stakeholders synergized together. We came together. We went under the notion of measure 1,000 times and cut once. We did very many meetings, back and forth. We agreed, disagreed, chewed bullets, but eventually we came to a conclusion. We had a unified approach and were able to roll out. Under the good guidance of our chair and our CEO and the able team, we were able to roll out, and the operational excellence was noted right from day one. The first day the activations went live, calls were coming in to different betting companies. Each one of us testified that our punters called to confirm that that is a step in the right direction. Very crucial part is managing presenter bias and ensuring consistent delivery. We briefed our presenters to ensure we know they've dealt with these platforms individually at a different levels, some of them on contractual levels. They knew they could not be biased to any one particular platform, and they'd only have to mention AGOC, which means on a later day, when we start going to BTL, which is below the line, even the branding that will be used on the vehicles and on the clothes will be AGOC. There is not going to be any mention of any betting platform or casino or online. The value-added coverage, the high level of goodwill resulted in several stations extending their booked slots. We want to also thank the members of the media who are able to agree to continually book these mentions even beyond the period we had paid. Point to note Capital FM, I believe even one of our very own 47, is also by extension a member of this platform. Adaptive briefing tactics, recognizing that most presenters are unavailable for formal pre-interviews. We implemented a strategy of early studio arrival. This allowed the critical last mile briefings, ensuring the talent was fully aligned before going live. To that, I want to commend the team behind here, went out of their way to ensure that their lines were on. Each presenter would call, even halfway through the brief, they would call and ask, have they said the right thing? And they'd correct and guide. The workflow in summary, development, key actions was scripting, which again, when we do the next subsequent Chukua control campaigns, this is exactly the structure we'll still be following. Key actions, scripting, and online debrief. The impact it had is we established the strategic foundation. Our foundation was not shaky at all. That is why we were very sure and confident of what we were feeding the public. Production, radio and TV production, and iteration was done at the most excellent because it was already guided by a script that had been approved both by AGOC and the board as then, and now the authority. This ensured high quality client approved assets. Creation of presenter brief guides. This helped provide a roadmap for live activation, which was very key. We were able to monitor what they were saying daily and correct and or add where necessary. Early studio briefings and AGOC synergy managed the presenter bias and ensured seamless delivery. I'll not belabor that, I'd mentioned it. Extended slots and Capital FM coverage, which meant the media felt endeared to what we were doing and gave us extra value and extra time to push our agenda. Next. For the recommendations, we recommend heavily that to sustain this behavioral change narrative, responsible gambling, responsible betting should be a long-time endeavor, because behavior does not change overnight. Behavior changes with reinforcement. So we are going to continue pushing an on-air approach, which is going to be sustained, of course, through the synergy of the members here and the members at large. Through the contributions and the non-tiring of these members, we'll be able to do this endeavor on a longer term, and of course, under the guidance of GRA. We want to institutionalize media relations to keep top-of-mind awareness, which means anytime someone feels or even knows or comes across an issue, they'll be able to relate and say, AGOC has actually told us about sugar control, and they find someone who has a problem, they'll be able to send it back to us. As well, at this point, it's very key to note that we are under the consistent guidance of Madam Esther, and she's always sending us the different self-exclusion things. The reason I've said that is also we kept on telling people, our punters, if you feel this thing has overwhelmed you, exclude yourself from betting. And I'm sure all platforms here have kept pushing the self-exclusion option even on our platforms. Strategic engagement through gamification to deepen the relationship. We suggest unconventional engagement tactics, such as industry game nights. This will mean people will start relating more and looking at this thing at a friendlier point, and at a point where they can decide, I don't have to live on this, and they'll be able to regulate even without us reminding them. Next one. Expand the regional and vernacular footprint. This was a very key area for us. We did realize that we are all seated in Nairobi right now, but we have to agree the biggest problems are happening outside there in the rural areas. We have particular areas that are quite affected, being Central and the Rift areas. These were heavily affected, and thus the use of vernacular radio and TV stations became rather imperative for us at that stage. Incentive audience participation. For future phases, we recommend incorporation of audience giveaways. This tactic has proven way to elicit high interactions rates and transforming. So basically, this is a hook and bait process, which would mean we hook and bait them, and they come and they know I'm going to get something out of this interaction, and in that way, we're able to guide them. Way forward, 2026. So for the upcoming ahead of our Monday Blitz, February, that was the past, we were able to follow up with the different people. Duncan Mutua alongside Tony Kwalanda, Fred Arocho. We were able to have these different people on TV47 help us go through the interviews. They help demystify the process of betting. They help pass the message. The reason we want to use these people in particular going forward now and onward is because they actually do have a very big share of ear in the audiences. So when they tell their audiences, chukua control, it feels better and heavier than coming from myself or any other platform operator. Next one. Way forward, confirmed media interviews, We have got a number of confirmed interviews. I don't think I'll go through the details because of time element, but we have the different stations at TV47, Radio 47, Classic, Radio Jambo, Cass FM. Kindly note these are not paid for. So it means the goodwill of media is also helping us a lot. These people want us to go and continue talking, and that makes us feel welcome and know that we are a good step in the right direction. As well, the same, we'll ensure to share these details with the authority. Next one. And that is us. So this is the agency, again, for purposes of transparency. Well, that's why we are seeing the name Tentacle there, maybe just to ensure. For purposes of transparency, we ensured that none of the platform operators will run and or operate or monitor the Chukua control. That is why we went and vetted quite a number of agencies, and they came and we got the best one, best price, best practice, best reporting practices, and we're able to award them the process that is tentacle. That ensures there is no bias to that end. To that point, my CEO, nimeshukuru, I hope I've covered everything.
Thank you, Dedan, for that elaborate presentation. Mr. CEO, you still have something? We are running short of time. If it's a brief observation, I'll accept.
Regarding the presentation? For the presentation, we have nothing else to say unless anybody else has a question or something, which we'll be happy to take. But now we just wanted to move on to submitting our own observations on the regulations. But we'll go by your guidance.
We'll take it later on, at a later. We'll give you a chance. Ladies and gentlemen, we have two regulations which we have not gone through. That's foreign-based operators and gambling appeals and tribunals. But before that, GRA presented before us fees. There was an uproar in the House. In the plenary here, we have Kenya Revenue Authority. The taxman is here. Maybe he has come up with the new taxes. Let's give them a chance so that they can tell us what they have in store for us before we go to the foreign-based regulations and gambling tribunals. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I think I want to demystify that the taxman is here. Yes, it's a taxman and a tax lady. I want to introduce my colleague, Rhoda Onyango. She can just stand and you see her, the manager for betting and gaming sector in terms of management of taxes at the Kenya Revenue Authority in the large taxpayers office. My name is Joseph Otieno. I am the chief manager for the ICT, media, telecommunications, betting, and the gaming sectors that basically we deal with the issues of tax compliance. And this morning, I want to take a fairly brief moment just to empathize, to be at the same level with all of us in the program that we have in front of us. We want to appreciate the Gambling Regulatory Authority for this very timely introductions or proposals of the regulatory framework documents to be able to find implementation of the Gambling Control Act that was enacted fairly recently last year into operation. So as all of us, we gather together as stakeholders, I think our interest is common, and in as much as the regulatory mandate of the GRA is basically of oversight and ensuring there is order in terms of the operations of the gambling industry. On the side of Kenya Revenue Authority, we always handle the mandate of tax compliance, and we are attached in the hip with GRA to a wide extent. And of course, all of us, the industry players, because we cannot do without one another. And so just briefly, I would try to belabor and indicate our appreciation in terms of the regulatory framework documents that have been put in place. More especially, I've found opportunity to go through the proposals in the gambling licensing, gambling control licensing regulations 2016, which I think we have just been ably discussing and making proposals that perhaps some of us may wish to be put in place. And so this, we are in it together, because even at KRA, we do handle registrations of taxpayers. So from the very beginning of some operator or some firm becoming a taxpayer, then we will start at the same point. And indeed, we do quite appreciate the proposals that are put in place. Subject to the comments that the members in the industry are putting, we really appreciate, because I picked one or two issues on the licensing regulations, and this is particularly in the area of endeavoring to do classification. And I think one of us commented that there needs to be a lot more to do with the KYC in the industry in terms of all parameters of the happenings in the sector for good control and also oversight in terms of really the good that all of us think should happen and should be associated with the industry, even as we handle our businesses. I also looked at the national lottery, the national lotteries regulations, and indeed saw very good proposals that were ideally coming up. And I see, even as we sit on the other side of taxes, we are together in this, because it enables us as well to be able to have what we can call a very regulated, a very well understood industry players and even customers, so to speak. So it's very important. I noticed the role of this particular national lotteries board in terms of handling some of those. Sometimes we have had challenges with some of this, and the more we are regulated, it is for the good of all of us as industry participants. Maybe also, I think I've been told that we discussed around the gambling control advertising regulations yesterday. And a bit of that I've picked in the morning when one member did mention out of his point that there is some withholding income taxes being charged. And of course, I think he was comparing with the other side of the licenses that were perhaps being placed in that window. And perhaps just to note on that is that when you do withholding tax, that withholding tax is the cost of that supplier that you are paying. So for you as a gambling industry player, you are basically just making a collection on behalf of KRA and of course remitting. Part of that, whether it be 15%, then you would pay the supplier his dues, and the whole will be counted as you having paid your bill. And indeed, the supplier will have been credited for making payment of his or her tax dues. Also, I think we are yet to discuss something about the foreign-based entities, and I think this quite was good, and I've seen a lot of fair proposals. This is an area that all of us as industry players, especially local regulated entities that we are, I think we have raised issues that for us as regulators, whether tax compliance or whether it be oversight regulation, you require of us to really be able to instill a lot of discipline in this area for the benefit of all of us as industry players, especially the fact that you are regulated and you are complying in all matters, yet somebody will want to come and operate in your space and slice part of your market. So I think some of these proposals we need to support, and it's for the good of all and both parties. Very important. I've also noted, lastly, maybe the gambling, you call it the Gambling Appeals Tribunal. That will obviously go a long way to reduce disputes, whether it be from players, it be from the operators. And I think even in terms of KRA tax management, we do encourage that when we do not quite agree with something, there are avenues right from discussions with the case officers and progressing through the various channels that are available for you, including alternative dispute resolution before independent parties within the framework of KRA. Lastly, but not least, I would want just to mention that besides the regulations that are basically for oversight and of course helping us all as industry players and also as tax compliance management side, I know maybe just it's important to remind us that we have basically about 3 main tax obligations for this sector that are different from other sectors. Of course, there are those common ones like corporation tax. They are pay as you earn for your employees. There are other normal withholding income tax. But then for this sector, there are about 3 taxes or tax heads that apply largely. And you know about the excise duty tax, or duty or tax, which is provided for under what I would call the Excise Duty Act, and it is in paragraph 44. It's in paragraph 4B of Part 2 of the first schedule of that. And you remember we have a simplified tax system whereby the excise duty is simply calculated at 5% of the deposits into the customer wallet. And this has come a long way from where we used to have tax being charged on stakes by the punters and I think the industry has been having to raise issues with that line of taxation, which now we can say at the moment is put to rest. There is also the withholding income tax on withdrawals. Previously, this used to be on winnings, and this is also withdrawals from the customer wallet, and that is provided for under the Income Tax Act, Sections 34 and Section 35. You combine it with the provisions of paragraph 3 of the third schedule, where the rates are prescribed as 5% of those withdrawals from the wallet. And maybe just lastly, we have the game, what we call the betting and gaming tax, the GGR tax, which still is anchored in the provisions of this is at 15% of the GGR, the gross gaming revenue, and it's still anchored in the Gambling Control Act, courtesy of the transition clause that is found in section 121, subsection 6 of large, medium taxpayers who was meant to come personally for this invitation, Mr. Weldon Ngeno. So we do represent on his behalf. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Otieno, for that elaborate submission. And we welcome you and the regulations. When we are reviewing our regulations, we would like to have your input, also your submission to our regulation. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have two regulations which are very, very, very brief. We have someone to present to us. He'll tell us who he is, which office he comes from. But before that, could we be upstanding? All of us. Could we be upstanding? Can we stretch a bit? Someone to dance a bit? Please, Mr. Mutegi, be upstanding. Some of us are falling asleep. I think we've woken up. Thank you very much. Mr. Manasseh, take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moderator, DG, and members of the board, and members of the public or the gaming industry. Good afternoon. My name is Manasseh Kiplagat Tunen. I am an advocate, Director Legal Affairs at the Executive Office of the President, and I have two regulations to present to you. Very brief regulations. I don't know if you have them. I was held up a little bit. I didn't prepare a presentation, so I think we'll just project the regulations as they are. One regulation is on the tribunal established under Section 8812 of the Gambling Control Act, and another one is the foreign-based regulations, which the law provides under Section 79(4) of the Gambling Control Act. So we can start with any of them if you can project. I think that is the tribunal's regulations. Basically, what these regulations provide for, it establishes the appeals tribunal under Section 88(12) of the Gambling Control Act. And there are several subsections that I've indicated. I think it is on the left side of the regulations. And Section 88 provides that, if you will permit me to read, only the first paragraph, it provides that there is established a body to be known as the Gambling Appeals Tribunal. So what this provides for is an appeal of any decisions that is made by the Gambling Regulatory Authority. And the law provides that it can be an appeal from the county government or the national government, and also any other matter that is referred to the authority. So this is any decision that an aggrieved party or an aggrieved individual or an entity or a company from the authority, so that they are able to appeal the decision of the authority to the Gambling Appeals Tribunal. So if it is an issue of licensing, if it is an issue of fees, any matter that is referred and a decision has been made by the Gambling Regulatory Authority, you can appeal that decision to the Gambling Appeals Tribunal. And very briefly, as we go by, it provides for the quorum and membership of the tribunal. Quorum provides for 3 members who can sit and determine an issue. The chairperson of the Appeals Tribunal is someone with the qualifications of an advocate of the High Court. That is 15 years post-admission practice. And also its membership, it draws membership from nomination by the Judicial Service Commission of 2 members who must be advocates of the High Court. And then the Cabinet Secretary can appoint 4 other members who have experience in matters to do with business administration, gambling, law or risk management. So those are other members who can be appointed by the Cabinet Secretary responsible for gambling. So we can go to the form of the appeal. The appeal takes a form of memorandum. It is a memorandum filed in a standard form, similar to the one that is filed in court. And I think that memorandum, we've provided that it is accompanied by evidence, so that any evidence that you feel needs to be presented to the tribunal, you accompany the same with a memorandum. And any evidence that needs to be looked at by the appeals tribunal. The register of appeals is also provided. It is maintained, the register is maintained by the secretariat, and the secretariat is housed or being held at the Judicial Service Commission, so that the appeals tribunal is not a creature that will be within the Gambling Regulatory Authority. It is an institution that will be based in the Judicial Service Commission. And I don't know if you might be aware of a decision that the Supreme Court yesterday delivered, a ruling in terms of where the tribunal should be based and who appoints the tribunal. And by and large is that tribunals or any matter that can be adjudicated, that is a function of the judiciary. So the secretariat and any other function will be based in the Judicial Service Commission. And we also provided for filing of memorandum and amendment of the memorandum. It takes the form of the normal court. You are allowed to file within 21 days after a decision has been made by the Gambling Regulatory Authority. And the chairperson or the members of the tribunal have the prerogative of allowing an aggrieved party to amend their pleadings. And the service of the summons take the form of Order 5 of the Civil Procedure Rules, so that the Order 5 provides of who you need to serve, how you need to serve, when and where you need to serve. So that takes the normal process of Order 5 of the Civil Procedure Rules. Withdrawal of an appeal is also provided. An aggrieved party can withdraw an appeal at any time before hearing without leave. You only seek leave from the tribunal after the hearing has started. So you have the prerogative of withdrawing an appeal to the appeals tribunal at any time before hearing commences. An appearance, as always similar to the court, you can appear in person or you can appear through an advocate. So those are the 2 forms that appearance take place. The hearing takes place normally, similar to the court. You can file your submissions, you can argue orally, and you can present evidence. So it takes the normal process of the court. Summoning of witnesses, the tribunal has the power to summon witnesses, similar to the powers granted to the courts. You can present your witnesses as an aggrieved party or a party mentioned in the proceedings. So you have the right to present your witnesses, and also the tribunal can summon witnesses. And also the tribunal, through the chair, has the power to call for expert witnesses in areas that need such witnesses. So if a matter is presented before the tribunal and it is a complex matter which either of the party has no experience, the tribunal can call for an expert, and the tribunal can also choose to disregard the evidence of such an expert if it feels so. So I think that is by and large what the appeals tribunal is about. And a ruling takes the normal form of a ruling before the court. It is a decision that has to be written and delivered before the parties or delivered to the parties in any form that the tribunal decides. So the filing of filing fees has been provided for under the second schedule. The filing of a memorandum of appeal has been provided as 10,000. And a supporting affidavit which carries the evidence is 1,000, similar to a replying affidavit. Statement of defense is 2,500. Notice of appeal is 1,000, same as the notice of appearance, that is for an advocate. And also cross appeal, that is when a person has appealed a decision of the Gambling Regulatory Authority, and the regulatory authority has also a claim against that party. So that is when they file a cross appeal. So a cross appeal we provided for as 10,000 shillings. A certificate of urgency, that is you file that when you need your matter to be determined within the shortest time possible. So you file it under a certificate of urgency. A file perusal is 100 shillings. A notice of preliminary objection is 1,000 shillings. Adjournment fee is 5,000. That is when you are not able to proceed with your matter on a scheduled date. You can make an application to adjourn your matter to a later date and you pay 5,000 shillings. A certified copy of the record of the proceedings, that is 30 shillings per page. And finally, a consent order. That is when parties have agreed and they need it to be recorded by the court as an order of the tribunal, sorry. You pay 500 shillings. So that is all that is provided for in the tribunal. And also, the law has provided under Section 90 for a further appellate jurisdiction of the High Court. When a party is aggrieved with the decision of the appeals tribunal, you have the liberty within 14 days to appeal to the High Court. And you are not limited to that. You can go up to the Supreme Court if the law permits so. But I think you can proceed to the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court if it is a matter of public interest. So I believe that could be all for the appeals tribunal. Unless there's any question, we can clarify. And permit me to proceed to the other regulation of foreign-based operators. Thank you very much. Foreign-based operators is provided for under Section 79(4) of the Gambling Control Act. If you allow me to read. Section 79 provides for that 79 subsection 1, a gambling operator based in a foreign country shall only be issued with an online gambling license where the operator is registered in Kenya, has a physical address in Kenya, and meets the requirement prescribed by the authority in the regulation. So that is what is provided for an online gambling operator. Section 79 subsection 4 provides that despite the provisions of subsection 1, which I just read, a gambling operator based in a foreign country who does not intend to carry out online gambling activities in Kenya may apply for a license to the authority under this section. What does this mean? This means that this is a person who needs a Kenyan license but does not intend to carry out the gambling activities in Kenya. You just come for a Kenyan license, you go and operate your gambling activities elsewhere and not within the Republic of Kenya. That is what is provided for under Section 79(4). And we've provided a very brief regulations for that. And the interpretation, normally as it is what you need to know about certain terms or words in the regulations. And part 2 is the licensing and gambling and capital requirement. We have provided that this is a company that will not be based in Kenya, and it has been exempted only with one exemption, that they are not supposed to have their physical address in Kenya, and number 2, that they are not required for the 30% equity to be a Kenyan. Those are the only 2 exceptions that has been granted to these companies, that you are not required to give a 30% equity to a Kenyan, and number 2, you are not bound to have a physical office in Kenya. So for the licensing and capital, it remains the same as set out in the first schedule. An applicant under this section, notwithstanding the non-resident status of the target market, shall comply with fit and proper test as articulated in Section 29. So even if you are not operating in Kenya, you have to comply with any other provision of Section 29 of the Gambling Control Act. And secondly, the foreign-based operator needs to have the minimum of the following. Number 1, they have to have the paid-up capital of 100 million shillings. And number 2, the security bond or guarantee of 200 million shillings. This is to ensure that a company that applies for such a license is not a joke of a company. This is to ensure that it is a company that has a proper base and is not intending to go and use the Kenyan license in a foreign jurisdiction in other ways than that has been licensed for. So exemptions to and variation, the authority may, upon written application and based on the profile of the host jurisdiction, exempt the operators from the 30%. That is what I have already talked about. You can be exempted from issuing 30% equity to a Kenyan company. Operational standards and committee, we have provided that as much as you are not operating in Kenya, you are elsewhere, but you are using the Kenyan license, you have to adhere to the laws and regulations of the host jurisdiction. So that if you've taken a Kenyan license, you are elsewhere, maybe in Malta, you need to comply with the regulations and the laws of Malta as pertaining to the operations of gambling or whatever you're using the license for. So we provided that you need to, before you're given a license, you need to provide us with a certificate of compliance to ensure that you have complied with the laws of the foreign country, so that it is one of the tests to determine whether we issue you with a license or not. So you need to provide that license from an entity similar to the Gambling Regulatory Authority. And also, if you breach such regulations of that country, the Gambling Regulatory Authority can refuse to issue you with a license or revoke your license if you are already issued with a license. And now, because you came to the GRA to get a license to go and operate elsewhere, we will not allow you to access the Kenyan market or the Kenyan gamblers or punters, as we call them. So that we will, to ensure this, the operator needs to provide the Gambling Regulatory Authority with access to its what we term as shall provide authority with remote, real-time access to its central server and gaming system for the purposes of monitoring financial flows and ensuring that no domestic bets are processed. Because your market or your target was not Kenya, you need to provide the authority with access to ensure that in all your operations, Kenyans are not your target. And Every operator under these regulations shall be deemed a reporting institution under the respective anti-money laundering laws and of Kenya and the host jurisdiction. So, because you see, the only exemption that we, as I mentioned, was the 30% and having offices in Kenya. All the other conditions you should meet. That means even opening of a bank account, you need to have Kenyan bank accounts as provided for under Section 29 for an online gambling operator who is not based in Kenya. And we provided for administrative penalties that if you breached any of these regulations, a penalty of 50 million shillings, not exceeding million shillings, or the authority may suspend or revoke the license, and the operator's security or bond may be forfeited to the state. So thank you very much. That is all for the foreign-based operators. Unless there's any question, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manasseh. And I know the operators will have to give submissions on the same regarding any controversies on the regulations. Ladies and gentlemen, we are behind our schedule. This is the time I'm opening up the plenary for any submissions before we close the session. Any submissions, anything on the foreign-based operators regulations, anything on tribunals appeal regulation? Anything on gambling regulation act? Oh, Mr. Mutua, carry on, please.
Thank you, Amoy. I think I just wanted to take this opportunity to invite both Sasha and Paul just to make our highlights of submissions so that then we can move on pretty quickly.
So good afternoon all once more. So on behalf of Association Gaming Operators of Kenya, I would like to have some few sentences for us to know maybe more about association, which represents licensed operators across Kenya's gambling sector, including betting, gaming, lottery, and online platforms. So basically we have 47 members so far. And we closely worked with our regulators, Kenya Revenue Authority, FRC, and in the past we had some good results. For example, last year, as AGOC, we succeeded to change taxes from excise tax to the tax on deposits, and from withholding tax on payouts, tax on withholding on withdrawals. So Mr. Mieno from KRA, he told us that KRA succeeded to collect more taxes by 28%. It was in November last year, correct? So we are very proud of that achievement in our sector, and we also like to work closely with the Kenya Revenue Authority in the future. So we support the objective of a modern, incredible, and enforceable regulatory framework. A well-celebrated regime is in the interest of both the regulator and the industry. Having reviewed the draft regulations, we consider that in their current form, they introduced a layered approval process, impose disproportionate costs and capital burdens, create operational bottlenecks, and in certain respects go beyond the scope necessary to operationalize the act. These issues arise primarily from how the regulatory framework is structured and implemented in practice. We have therefore set out a concise industry assessment together with specific provisions by provision proposals aligned to the prescribed submissions format. Our objective is to support a framework that is legally aligned with the Act, proportionate to risk, and operationalize workable. So, as conclusion, the Act provides a strong regulatory foundation. The task of the regulation is to translate that foundation into a framework that works in practice, one that supports compliant operators while strengthening regulatory oversight. In its current form, the draft does not yet achieve the balance. With targeted refinement, it can. So I would like to invite my colleague Paul to have a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll take maybe 10 minutes to just go through the document that is on the screens. Most of the comments we've already given them, so I'll not belabor the point. I think the first point that we had made is the question about the cost or the new costs that have been introduced under this framework. What our paper shows is that the costs are indeed exorbitant, particularly if you look at the old regime, and also if you look at other comparable regulators. So, when you look at the central bank, when you look at the IRA, when you look at the Retirement Benefits Authority and other authorities in a similar position. So I would like particularly to reiterate the point about application fees versus licensing fees. Even when you look at the appeals tribunal proposals, you saw that the application fees were very small. And essentially, such costs are supposed to be administrative in nature. They're supposed to be at the region of 10,000 shillings, 15,000 shillings. But what we can see, for bookmakers, online bookmakers, it's about 8 million shillings. Lottery is 1 million, casino 2.5. And this has been replicated in the entire regulation. So this is something that we would like to push back against. The reason we're saying this is that you need to look at these costs holistically. We're looking at application fees for licenses and renewal. We're looking at security, the gambling security that is now required. We're also looking at the capital that has also been required of us. I had given the examples earlier, 100 million, 20 million, 10 million. What this essentially does is that it pushes out credible operators from the market, and it does not balance the two requirements. The requirement for you to incentivize legitimate business while also monitoring and controlling gambling. The reason this is the most important point is that we're already a very heavily taxed industry, and you're taxing the same base. The punters are still the same. So even the 15% GGR that pays for sporting infrastructure, that's going to go away, or it's going to take a very, very big hit if indeed we push for this new cost regime. That's the most important point that we wanted to put across, but I'll also go through the other points. If you look at the Gambling Control, Conduct of Gambling Operations Regulations 2025, the points that I've made right now around the cost would also apply to the second schedule, which is on page 91. The point we are making, particularly around key gambling employees, shareholders, and directors, is that it is actually unconstitutional to require that exorbitant fees are paid for people to validly work. Many of these people are accountants, some are lawyers, some are marketers, customer service, MLROs, and all these people under the Constitution are required to work. So placing a burden on the employer or the employee for them to be validly licensed, for them to practice their trade is actually unconstitutional. That's the reason why we are pushing that this should be a small token, 5,000 shillings, 10,000 shillings, as opposed to 300,000 or 100,000. In any event, that licensing should mirror the licensing period of 3 years that has been granted, as opposed to this being an annual license. One of the things that my colleague mentioned in the morning is the issue about the 1 million Kenya shillings fine for not running or not running an approved online platform. That obviously needs to go up, because then you're incentivizing the wrong behavior. You're basically asking people to run illegal websites, pay 1 million shillings, and they are good, as opposed to actually telling them that, everybody should be within the ambit of the regulator. There's a significant question around the 200-meter radius or boundary with learning institutions. We think that this specific question is going to apply very adversely, and this is Regulation 60, to current operators, because they would either have to move or look for an area where would be appropriate to then not be in breach of this provision. We think either that there should be a sufficient transition period for this, or that they should apply to new operators who then have the flexibility of choosing premises. In terms of the next licensing period or next licensing round, we think that this should already have begun. Because if you look at the current provisions of the Act and the proposed regulations, ensuring system integration, employee licensing, equipment verification, and regulatory certifications, that is a process that at the industry level takes a minimum of 6 to 9 months. Given that today is 1st of April, our licenses lapse in the next 3 months, and given the history in terms of how licensing renewal is done, we feel that a longer transition period is required, because even for the regulator, they need enough time for their systems to be in place to allow for this to be operationalized. I think I want to just make 2 last comments, and then I'll give it back to the chair. Regulation 85 requires or proposes that a licensee, where approval has been granted, shall not allow a person to participate in any form of online gambling without conducting mandatory identity check, location verification, and age assurance check. The proposal we have around this regulation is that provide a minimum uniform standard of verification or information to be collected, and also the same thing ought to apply for locations. So then it then means that at the industry level, the GRA will then be able to tell us exactly what kind of information they require to be collected, and therefore what compliance means will be known. In terms of responsible gambling, we think that the regulator should actually give us a 12-month period, just like what we mentioned about employee licensing and system integration, because employing these responsible gambling tools takes time for many operators who either operate on platforms that have been licensed by foreigners. You can imagine the amount of time that takes to make these changes, and therefore that's why we are requesting for a 12-month period. Regulation 87 and 89 are tied to each other. Regulation 89 talks about the authority placing a maximum number of entries that can be submitted by a participant in a gambling activity. we propose that this provision should be deleted, because essentially what that does is that it interferes with the customer's ability to interact with our system, and therefore that could actually impact our businesses adversely. The balance here should be the question about responsible gaming. Obviously, under the second schedule, which was on page 91, there is a proposal for a provisional license for a 3-month period. I think the first comment there is that this provision is not allowed in the Gambling Control Act, and therefore this cannot be introduced unilaterally under the regulations, because for anything to come into the regulations, it must be in the Act in the first place. And as such, if the minister is not empowered to issue such a license, then that license can easily be challenged. Obviously, just circling back on the advertising issue, where there is now a proposal to introduce a 10% levy on advertising budgets, that goes back to the main point we made earlier, that this is going to introduce a new burden on gambling entities. You can imagine all of us operate through, doing advertising. Without advertising, that's the lifeblood of our business. Without advertising, we would not be in existence, and therefore, placing a 10% surcharge in addition to the 15% excise duty that is already being paid at the moment, that is an undue charge, and we think that should also be done away with. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Paul, for a good presentation. I just want, if you allow me, DG, to introduce AGOC board's team. Thank you. I would like you maybe to stand up for the board and for our members, which I would like to thank you for being members to Association of Gaming Operators in Kenya, and we would like you to invite you to be our members, that we can speak to one voice. All members of AGOC, I would like you maybe to stand, and if, okay. Nice. Thank you. Asanteni sana, and thank you very much. If there is any other questions, thank you, DG.
Thank you, AGOC, for that submission. Thank you for the work you are doing, also in promoting responsible gambling. We would encourage other operators who have not joined AGOC to join. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time we are receiving final submissions from you on the regulations that we had presented.
Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to talk about something concerning fees. Fees on the tribunal court. The one our friend has talked about. A memorandum of appeal, which has a proposal of 10,000. I've seen certificate of urgency has also 10,000 shillings. Fine for perusal is 100, and a certified copy 30 shillings per copy. I think this is not fair to somebody who is asking for justice in the tribunal, simply because you've not aligned yourselves with the new charges the court, the normal high court, is charging. For example, I had a friend who had asked for certified copies and a memorandum of appeal. And he was asked that he is supposed to pay 1,000 shillings for the whole process. So the issue of 30 shillings per page is no longer there. You just pay 1,000 shillings. They don't care how voluminous the documents are. You just pay 1,000 and then your case is registered. So I think I only wanted you to align yourself with the new charges in the High Court of Kenya and also in the lower courts, so that a tribunal cannot supersede the High Court. You have to align the rules with the High Court, not yourself. A tribunal is something small, hived from another one. So I think over that, I don't think if we charge exorbitant fees so that somebody can seek justice, sometimes even justice is dispensed free of charge. So look at that kind of fees and harmonize to suit these members of the industry players. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simiyu, for that submission. We have noted and we'll give you a feedback. Any other observation? Oh, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, my name is Isaiah Opio. I'm a digital financial inclusion specialist. I'm not part of the operator, so I need to put that into context. So, first of all, AGOC, I think I love the work you're doing in regard to Chukua control. The only unfortunate thing, in fact, there's a time breweries came out and said one of their competitors are no longer illicit brews, but betting companies. They became very open. Betting companies are their competitors, not even illicit brews. Talking of that, currently we would find that we don't have what we call, and here I'm talking about gambling conduct, we don't have betting in Kenya, especially for people who have control. How many people, if you are told out there, if it is not, let's say for instance drinking, you'd find that most people will only leave the bar when their wallet is dry. And not only dry, they have even exhausted digital loans. Sasa anaamua aende nyumbani. So telling someone to take control, chukua control, it's not practical. That's number one. Number two, most rehabilitation centers, addicts are being taken there by their relatives. Today, let's be very open. There are so many betting addicts in the villages. And of course, you said Central and Rift and a greater part of Western Kenya, there are so many addicts. And unfortunately, when it comes to things like alcohol, you can see somebody staggering and you're like, hey, the guy slept on the bus stage, amejikojolea. But in betting, how will you know? The guy is actually just walking, not even staggering. I think it is high time, in regard to responsible betting, it is high time we either created something, or maybe either we make it part of the legislation, or AGOC goes ahead and creates a rehabilitation program, or even a call contact where people whose relatives are addicted can call. An addict will never call by himself. Or number two, they'll never walk themselves. And we talk about realities here. When in regard to, attaching to that is, why can't you go beyond and say, chukua control, do not take a loan to bet? Let's be very honest. Like I told you, last year, when there was a freeze in regard to advertisements, the number of loan uptake or application on digital platform dropped. I think it was month of April around there, it dropped. What does it mean? It means whether we like it or not, the betting is actually fueling things to do with the loan addicts. Either they are one part, they are betting addicts, then they get to the point where they are loan addicts. If it is possible, under your Chukua control, I know this is conflict of interest, why can't you go ahead and say, Chukua control, do not take a loan to bet, and do not bet school fees or rent or salaries. To be very honest, then that would bring a bit of impact. Then lastly, when someone, maybe a player, wins 1 million Kenya shillings, in his entire life is never touched more than 200,000. You celebrate him, the TVs take photos and all that. I would want you to go back and study people who have won bets, huge bets. Their life is miserable. I don't want to bring anything superstitious about it, but their life is miserable in the sense that the guy who's doing well financially is just won 1 million. Over time, when you go to check on him 5 years down the line, the guy is bankrupt and everything has scattered. What does it mean? It is high time AGOC would come up with a program
of financial literacy, especially for people who have, another part of it, then after a short time, $500,000 will come back to you. Then my land I'll sell and it will come back to you. Tick box or a click is not age verification. Age verification means the word verification comes from checking, counter checking with something that is original. What are the measures you put in place in terms of age verification? Because as it is, putting an ID number, and the fact is, majority of youngsters who are underage are actually taking their parents' phone. Your son is telling you, can I have your phone just to play games or even cartoon? The guy is busy because first of all, he doesn't have a phone. He will go to those sites, and you as an old man, you're like, I've never gone to those sites. He goes in there, the phone is yours, and when they check in there, they check wanapata ID ni yangu and everything is fine. And I know one of the operators actually told me they confirm on phone. That alone is not enough. How can we be able to do that? And Mr. Chair, Bwana Chair, lastly, I had actually done the submission. Let us protect our parents, the ones who are 60s and above. They have no other source of income, and if they are addicted to betting, the same here, the salaries we are getting from our workers, as guys, people working in betting companies, we'll go to treat them, to bury them, and it will get into more worse things. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Isaiah, for that submission, and it's good that you've indicated that you've done it in written. Thank you. Your views are well captured. The next presenters, please be brief and concise. There's a hand which has been raised here. Let's hear from that gentleman. Introduce yourself and organization you are representing.
Hi everyone, my name is John from Bet Consult. I'll touch on the issue of responsible gaming and self-exclusion. The unique identifier of every Kenyan is the ID. We find that you remove them from your site, then they go to the next one. You self-exclude the number, but they go ahead to register a second one. So what we can do is bring Safaricom into the whole idea, because all gaming pay bills are under gaming Mugao tariff. So we can exclude the ID, meaning even if they register 5 numbers, they can still not be able to deposit on gaming pay bills. That will be the only solution we can work with, and we are able to exclude them permanently. Thank you.
John, for that submission. There is a lady who raised her hand here.
Thank you so much. For me, I'm just curious. I don't know about all of you, but I'm just curious about the foreign operator license, I think. If I understood Mr. Manasseh well, you get a Kenyan license. You do not operate in Kenya. You don't have an office in Kenya. You don't have any Kenyan employees. So how does Kenya benefit? I'm just curious. Thank you.
Madam Judy, your views are well captured. We'll give you feedback. Any other submissions from the plenary? Oh, thank you, Madam. This someone save time. Your submissions have been. We need brief, concise. Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth. Okay, I still have, I said this yesterday. I'm very happy Kerry is here today. A representative that is, he's left. Oops. I was still going to speak about when you give a new operator or a renewed operator or freshly coming in operator 6 months to start operations, and KRA is taking 7 months, 8 months to finish up the UAT and everything and the integration. So one, that person is, or that investor is losing money because he has really opened operations. He has to pay the people who are doing everything in that office, but cannot operate, cannot start making money because KRA is taking its time. So I think first, before you give us the fees of 8 million, I think you should first correct the full operation on how is this when these companies come in, are we helping them to start off so that they're able to also recover the 8 million that they're going to pay. Then I want to respond to this gentleman a bit. I think for a while, we're going back to the point where gambling was taken, betting companies, of which they are legal operating businesses, are being taken to be illegal. Because I cannot control how my sister, who probably is an alcoholic, will go take a drink. It will be very difficult. So what will I do? I don't expect the alcohol company to look for me to take my sister to rehabilitation. It is up to me. So we cannot control. What you can do is what AGOC is doing, and of which I appreciate, is create awareness. Awareness of telling that this player plays, you need to control yourself. You need to learn it is for fun. Again, it is for fun. It is not a mandatory thing that you have to do. It is just for fun. So the crucifixion every time of we are making people addicts should also go to cigarette providers, should also go to alcohol providers and everything. Then thirdly, still on the fees, there is no way anyone can wake up in the morning and decide to add over 8,000% on fees that used to be 100,000 pushed to 8 million. I think that is
My name is Ruth. I'm representing Family Town. Since we have already established gambling is supposed to be for fun and in the spirit of responsible gambling, why can't the age limit for gambling be 21 years and above? Because if we put 18 years, when someone is 18, 19, 20, these are still kids. So to prevent gambling problems from people who are too young, we can push the age limit to maybe 21, 25 and above. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Ruth, for your submissions. We are running very, very fast. Any other submissions? We encourage you to do written submissions and submit to us for feedback. Yes.
Good afternoon. In the morning I had a question, not a submission. Please, could I have the question answered? Thank you.
Could you repeat your question, sir?
My question was on a gambling capital requirement, on what we can use bank guarantee, whether that's possible. So I think I need more clarity on that.
Let's take your question. We'll address it. We've captured your question. We'll address it.
Okay, thank you.
Not in this forum. Any other person?
Good afternoon. Well, my name is Hilda Naren from Kilibet, Kenya. So just to respond to the gentleman about responsible gaming, I think there's an institution in place, it's called Game Help Kenya. For the addicts, maybe you can check it out. It has even the list of rehabilitation centers. And then BCLB used to collect, like if you're a relative for somebody who is addicted, BCLB used to collect submissions. So on behalf of that person, you can still submit, and they share the lists with the companies. Then the players are actually omitted from the website. So maybe you can do a little more research on that area.
Thank you, Maria, for that submission. Thank you for that clarification. We've captured your news, and we are running very fast. Governor, please keep this. Okay, fine. It's okay. Any other submission from the floor?
Thank you very much for the honest submissions, sincere and honest submissions. We encourage you to do it writing as you had guided earlier on. And turn the program to the Director General of Gambling Regulation Authority for further advice and continuity of the program. Thank you.
Good afternoon, team. Good afternoon, team. One, thank you very much to everybody who turned up today. I know this is a big chunk of your time that you have dedicated to us yesterday and today. I want to thank the Executive Office of the President and its representatives who are here today, the Ministry of Public Service as well. We thank all our partner agencies who had representation today. Thank the county governments as well. I would thank my board, led by our chair, Honorable Joseph Limo, and now represented by Madam Emma. Thank you for your attendance and participation. Thank the team that led and prepared very, very thoroughly, and I'd like the Public Participation Committee of GRA to please stand up. Everyone involved in the planning of today, thank you very much. I'd like also to include the rest of the members of GRA, please stand up. This was important enough to have every director attend this session purely because, one, they were very, very instrumental in the drafting of both the Act and the regulations. Let me particularly cite Mr. Mbasi, who's been part of this process from when, I guess, the Act was in its formative stages, the formation of BCLB in its later years, and then the transition into GRA. You can all have a seat. I'd like to thank all operators, all participants in whatever form that you presented your views, that you took your time to prepare your submissions and then present them, those who did, and also submit them for those who did. It is a great honor. This is your constitutional right to participate in the formation of the rules that govern the conduct of your industry. I thank the members of the media who are present today, who will accurately present what has happened here yesterday and today. We shall compile your submissions into for further addition into the regulations. They shall then be submitted to Parliament, who are your representatives, for review, and when they are finally accepted, it will be published for your consumption, and the window for licensing will commence. We shall keep you updated operationally, as we always do, on every step that we take. Again, thank you very much for your robust participation, and I wish you a fantastic afternoon hereafter and a blessed Easter. Asanteni sana.
As we close the session, I'll ask Mr. Oloch to lead us in a word of prayer, and then we can disperse at our place.
we could all be upstanding so that we say this prayer. Now, tuombe. We thank you, Almighty Father. We thank you once again for you are so loving, so caring. We have digested the new regulations which were proposed to be subjected upon Kenya, and more so the nearest stakeholders who are the industry participants. They have taken this seriously, for after this there will be cause to show, cause to answer. And further, the sentiments which we have received are healthy, good enough, so that they can put them together with what is already done to make a better document. We still appeal to you that you enable this process to come to a conclusion, and that it may be subjected to practice to guide this gambling industry in Kenya. Bless our chairman and the board members as they steer this great organization, which is just in its formation stage. Bless our Director General as he administratively steers this great organization. May you give us good health. May you also give the same unto all our operators and other stakeholders. We would like to see a better Kenya for tomorrow, and we would like a Kenya that is governed by the rule of law. Help this industry to be in the mix, that we may be able to perform better than we have done before. We are facing a new licensing period, and further we are going to interact quite heavily in the next few months. Our Lord, bless all these operators, add them wisdom. They have created employment to many Kenyans, and they are contributing a great deal also into the treasury of this country. They are just as good. Bless them. Now we want to adjourn this meeting, and our Father, we pray that you take us to various destinations. Keep us for another day, which we may be able to interact again. According to your plan, we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.